Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back here to the Square the Circle Music Channel. I'm your old pal, Aaron Major, and it's a nice, sunny, early morning here in Western Oregon. The dew dripping off of the trees and flowers. It's a cold one, but that's what early to mid-April has to offer us here. It's been snowing and hailing and sleeting and all that fun stuff. So, reverence on this beautiful morning. We like to spin soft, subtle soundscapes to bring us a little bit closer to the light. Am I right? Am I right? So here you are again for another episode of Tinkle Tunes. And this morning I wanted to talk about that label that I discuss all the time, that I love so dearly, Windham Hill Records. I wanted to just kind of bring out some of the big hits on that label and just discuss it a little bit. And yeah, so let's chit chat, shall we? Windham Hill label. Windham Hill Records was an independent label created in 1975 by a couple of friends, a couple of hippie kids from the Bay Area, specifically speaking Palo Alto. A man named William Ackerman, who was a college dropout and a mean guitar player. And he was known all around the Bay Area for, his beautiful, soothing, subtle, hippie guitar stylings, and had another co-founder. I can't remember her name, Anne something. I feel bad because I don't believe she was a contributing artist to the label. I think she was just probably, someone who jumped on board financially probably and wanted to help the label out and get it, grassroots, get it going. But I don't believe that she, like I said, was any type of contributor to the music that Windham Hill gave the world. But William Ackerman, being these, kind of like key founding member of the label, he put out many albums on his own label, and it's just astounding stuff. That's what we're listening to right now. Besides his incredible guitar playing, he just roped in all these like amazing musicians that were kind of playing in and around that area in that period in time, the late 70s and the early 80s, in and around the Bay Area, like I said, of California. His cousin, Alex DeGrassi, also a killer guitar player, did numerous albums on this label and made the label, a lot of money, and was one of the bigger names on this label. But this album specifically that he put out a lot of albums, but this is my favorite. It's called Past Light. This was like in the early 80s, I believe. Yeah, 1983. Really beautiful, mature sound, lots of really cool electronic and those types of elements to it. It's not just a solely acoustic, instrumental album. Well, it is all instrumental, but you get what I'm saying. It's not all just like acoustic instruments. It's you can hear lots of really great kind of like soundscapes, really ethereal and cool, and so many wonderful elements to this music. I love it dearly. So William Ackerman created this label and just, pumping out the hits for us all throughout the early 80s. Gave us all kinds of wonderful samplers, which I love and appreciate. If I was an adult, in the early 80s, I would have been really excited to get, these mail order samplers every few months or once a year or whatever they were doing. You'd get some of their more well-known piano players on samplers like this, like George Winston and Liz Story, and lots of names. And so you get these types of albums, real wonderful. I like just kind of the real simplistic, just kind of stark white, lots of beautiful photography on all these albums that they would do. Another one that's like all guitar sampler hits and electronic sampler hits. That's this one specifically. I love this album. This is just kind of like on the top of my list for electronic music, you know. Artists like Tim Story and Patrick O'Hearn, and, you know, lots of excellent names in the world of electronic and ambient, kind of, you could say, piano-centric music, you know, keyboard-centric, but yeah, really fantastic. So that's another sampler album that they put out. And again, you know, one of my favorite live albums ever. The recording of this is just astounding. They're so, you know, not only putting out incredibly, you know, killer music in the studio, they were legit. All these artists, they could do it. They could do it on stage every time, every night. You know, their chops were amazing, and they were true musicians, true to their form and their art. In my opinion, you know, you can get in the studio and put out a Grammy award-winning album and make millions and millions of dollars and whatever else. You can't do it on stage, and get fucked, buddy. You know what I mean? Sorry for the harsh language so early in the morning, folks, but that's just the way I feel. You're a musician, you're an artist, and you're cranking out albums. You can't reproduce that. You can't do it on stage in front of a few thousand people. Get out of here. No one gives a shit. These solely, you know, studio artists that just can only make the magic, you know, in their bedroom or whatever. Nah, get the fuck out of town. We want live musicians, people that can play it for us. It's important. It's important to me. But yeah, they were giving us all those great samplers starting in 1981. They just said, hey, let's compile all these great artists and just give everyone what they want, and just put a beautiful compilation album out every year or every other year. I think they at first tried. They really wanted to give everyone, you know, a sampler album every year, starting in 1981. And of course, you know, huge names that made their label what it was. Artists like Michael Hedges and Michael Manring, and yeah, of course, Willie Ackerman himself does at least 2 or 3 on here, his cousin, Alex DeGrassi. And they just kept pulling that out. Again, in 82. Like I said, with all this beautiful photography on the covers. And I love and appreciate it. That's it. When I was a child, you know, and I was seeing this like in my mother's, you know, record collection, or like in my mother's CD collection or whatever, I would see this stuff and just, I was enthralled. I still love photography as an art form, as a visual art form. And these interesting photos, just like so captivating and wonderful. Took a year off in 1983, but then came back in 1984 with another wonderful sampler. I think this was the first one that featured one of my favorite artists, again, from this label, Michael Hedges. I've brought him up a lot, but he had released that Aerial Boundaries record in 1983. And so he had a lot of selections on this sampler in 1984 from his Aerial Boundaries record, which is just astounding. If anyone is a fan of acoustic guitar and along the more lines of like the more technical stuff, lots of kind of like, you know, hammering and like fretboard, you know, playing with, you know, his finger. What do you call that when you're just finger tapping on the fretboard and doing all kinds of fun, intricate, you know, technical stuff? He's one of those kind of guys. You know, didn't create the style, but just kind of really took it into kind of the more popular limelight, the more popular culture. So that's a fantastic sampler. Again, another break in 85, but then they came back strong in 86. This also has some really magnificent tunes on it, and just more familiar artists, but also some newer artists that you didn't see a ton in the early 80s. Ira Stein, magnificent piano player. More Michael Manring. Mark Isham finally makes an appearance on this label in 1986. Got a signature on this one. I can't remember who signed this one. Who was that? That one famous guy, Scott something. Yeah, Scott Kasu. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he He does a lot of stuff for this label, and I got a signed copy by him on this one. But yeah, some Mark Isham on here, another fucking amazing artist. Took a break in '87, came back in '88 with this one. Even more elaborate, beautiful photography on the cover. Yeah, the '80s was the decade for Windham Hill. One of my very favorite record labels. And the last one that I've ever found in 1989. I don't believe they did anything after 1989. It was absorbed and bought up when Sony Group Records became BMI, or was it the other way around? BMI got bought up by Sony. Anyway, and they just swallowed up a bunch of, entities that were kind of like parent companies to Windham Hill, this little independent label. And I think it was BMI that kind of just swallowed everything up. And it's owned by one of those giant subsidiaries, BMI or Sony or whatever. And nothing has ever been released ever since the mid 90s. And it's just kind of like, it still technically kind of exists, but not really. And there hasn't been any music released. So hopefully old Willie Ackerman and whoever he had with him that were contributors, whoever it may be financially, and hopefully they all got a big fat paycheck out of the deal and retired quietly and happily, and were able to do with the rest of their life what they set out to do. They gave us a decade or more of just outstanding, beautiful art, music. I love and appreciate every tiny little drip drop of it. So speaking of drip drops, here it comes. Might start snowing again. I'd sure like to get my garden starts in the ground. I don't think it's gonna happen for another couple weeks. I generally wait until May anyway, just to be safe. We can have all kinds of hectic, horrible weather here in Western Oregon, sometimes as late as, May. So again, I hope you folks all have a fantastic week, enjoying this springy time weather if you're in the northern hemisphere. So all you dudes and dudettes in the southern hemisphere, get ready for a harsh winter, I guess. It's fall time for you guys. So yeah, peace be with you, my friends, and keep the coffee hot, keep your vinyl clean. Peace in the crease, everybody.